All right. It has begun. Hold on, I'm posting on YouTube. I'm all alone today, so hang on. Okay, publish. Okay. Hey, how you guys doing? Monster Mark, what's up? Hold on just a second. Thought we'd have a change of venue today. It's the garage. And it's a mess, so I have framed it where you can see as little as possible. Hello, Mr. Live. Okay, so hello. Yes, I've been promising for weeks now, I think this is number 3, to do a private live for just patrons. Yeah, but technically, I guess I could do that, but it was faster to just start the dang, just start the, Monster Garage, to start the stream. So I hope you guys that are paying, in fact, if you guys are in here in the chat, I know there's just a few of you, but Monster Mark, you're one of them. If you are somebody that is paying on Patreon and are jealous that these last 3 times I'm giving this away for free, then raise your hand or tell me, yeah, this should be private, just us, or do you care? So that's the question, because there is a kind of a belief among patrons. I've been reading among Patreon.com guys that, you're trying to create the best value for these people that are giving money, so you have to make sure it's exclusive. And I haven't done it yet, so it would be a smaller audience. I'm going to do one of these a month for sure. So right now the plan, as stated, is we do a live stream once a week for patrons, and then I release one of those one time a month, just to give a little teaser, kind of like a drug dealer. The first one's free. Well, the first 3 are free here. But anyway, so here's some answers. You guys are seeing this on the chat, but I'm on Patreon, not jealous at all. Thank you, Justin 3D. Paul, yes, it's a nice benefit and reason to sign up. I do agree with you, Paul. So that is the intent. Just understand that it's not that I underestimated how difficult all of this content would be. It's that it just happens on the last 3 weeks. I've been busy right up until the time I need to rush out here and get on the live stream. So it's just really my laziness in scheduling, but I'm learning. So where you at, freak? I don't care. Haven't been able to join up yet till next month, but if people want, I'll bounce till then. No, Revision X, we're glad you're here. No, that's not the deal. I'm not saying that. I'm glad for anybody to show up, because obviously if this isn't engaging, then, who cares? But I will tell you this, that the one thing that I did do this last week, Monster Mark was there. I don't know if anybody else was there, but I did a Google chat, or now they call it meeting or something. But that was valuable to me. I had the best time with just a few people that showed up, but we had a pretty in-depth conversation. And what was nice is it was the 2-way conversation. Now, this is a little bit more challenging, as the audience gets bigger here. We're up to, 22 people. It's harder to see, you know how it is in a chat stream, like who's talking to who, what are you guys talking about? And it's a little hard for me to follow. I've talked to Tom from Tom's 3D, and he has so many people, it's just going. And then there's been a few times that he pissed people off, and people start getting angry, and then it goes even faster, and it's just impossible. But anyway, here's another one from, is it Siana? Siana? Every platform will tell you that yours should publish only on them, and Patreon is no exception. I understand. That is exactly what they say. You've got it right. Whether or not I believe it, though, because what they're selling is, our platform's valuable, and the more value you create for you, the more value we get to keep for us. So I don't know, unless Siana works for Patreon. I'm just kidding. Let's see. David says, exclusivity does not necessarily make a better product. Totally agree. Totally agree. You have to have valuable content first. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Sean Wood, what's up? Brookster. Good to see you, man. Are you going to start up a new business in the printer or CNC world? Question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark. Okay, so here's the deal. By the way, if you've got questions, post them now, because that'll keep it interesting. If you give me the space to just yap, then I'll just yap, and it goes like this with the people listening. Will I start a business? Yes. Will it be in the 3D printing or CNC space? Yes. But also no. So one of my big realizations is, when you lose a job and you look back on your life and you start to look at, what did I like about Printerbot? What did I love about Printerbot? What did I hate about Printerbot? I'll tell you a couple of things I hated. When everything you say reflects back, there's a fear that everything you say reflects back to sales. And I got to tell you, it's really nice being able to do whatever I want, and it doesn't relate to sales, really. You know what I mean? And if you watch me on Printerbot, I am clearly a guy that has a lot. I talked with Monster Mark about this. I'm clearly a guy that does a lot of things at once. And yeah, that means that, jack of all trades, master of none, that you don't perfect anything. Like the use cases, like I like to mention, is Ultimaker. They've pretty much stuck in Prusa, maybe. They've stuck with one main model, and they just iterated and iterated and iterated and iterated. The amount of design time and money spent and man hours spent at Printerbot was divided amongst a whole bunch of printers and CNC machines even. And if you start to connect, dollars from this model, dollars from this model, and so on, you see that it was really spread out. So, logic tells you that if I were to concentrate on one thing and do it at a very high level, that perhaps I'd still be in business. Well, that's a theory, but I'll tell you that I was always nervous about choosing my words really carefully, not necessarily always thinking or saying what I'm thinking, which I'm the type of person that says what I think. And I've come to realize that people enjoyed Printerbot in part because of me and the way that I am. So it's a lot less stressful when you can just be yourself 100%, not like 95%. And so again, here I go talking. I guess my point to your question is I didn't like the deadlines. I didn't like not really being able to do projects without trying to connect the dots on why am I doing a skateboard? Why am I doing a tank? Why am I doing the smalls? Why am I doing, a CNC? That's not really our business. When what we're doing here on Patreon, and here's the plan, is to design a 3D printer, design a CNC machine, design a water jet, maybe even a laser cutter. And those are the main ones. And I'm already adding to my list for maybe later, CNC lathe, a foam cutter. And these are the machines that I want. And I think that the videos will be best when you're creating stuff that you yourself want. There's an audience out there for everybody. And so the people that identify with the things that I value and the machines that I want to own, there's some of you guys that want to own, and girls, to own the things that I design and create. Now, a couple other things that I'm freed of without Printerbot. One, I can design in public because there's no fear of competition. And now I'm open source guy, still am. But I didn't want to design in public because, you create a lot of noise, and that noise can be distracting. Conversations can start to roll. And if you really miss the mark, like you start to look really stupid, and maybe that'll affect sales. Well, all those fears are gone. So I won't say public, but I will be designing from the very beginning. You guys have access, if you're a Patreon member, to see my very early designs and give me feedback on those. Now, the audience is smaller on Patreon, so it's not going to be as dizzying to hear everybody's opinion. In fact, the paid audience here actually, it actually ends up sucking a lot of the negative folks out of the room, because it's easy, when somebody has no skin in the game and they're on Twitter and they have opinion about Trump or whatever, blah, 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 blah. They just say whatever they're thinking. And what do they care? No, they're anonymous. Nobody really cares if they're a jerk, etc. And that's worst case scenario. But here in Patreon, these are people that I'm finding that have faith in what I've been doing and want to support that. They don't have, generally speaking, they have a little bit of expendable income, and they recognize that they're placing their votes with their dollars, and that I'm expected to do a good job with this money. But also, they're kind of in it for the experience, in it for the community, and they're engaged. So that engaged audience that I find on Patreon already, like instantly, has been far more encouraging to me as a person, and agreed, I've been down because of the loss of the business, and some of these guys have been really encouraging, and I appreciate that. But I see overall like a real positive thing happening in the community on Patreon with my interaction with them. And so everybody's been very grateful. They're engaged, they're willing to help, and they're smart people that have skills. And so I'm talking with the people in the community to engage with me on a much higher level than, thank you, Michael, not jealous. Can I have a job if I move there? No, because I don't have a business. I know some of this is about to scroll away, so I want to answer it. Okay, I'll answer a couple of these in a second. But anyway, so I'm going to be designing in public, and I'm going to share these designs early, and they won't be finished. They'll be a mess. And I don't care, because part of the benefit of becoming a Patreon guy or girl, somebody that's putting dollars on this project, is you get early access. You want to see everything? You want to see how the sausage is made? Check this out. So we're going to start with a couple of simultaneous projects, because I've just come to realize I'm not going to do one thing at a time. And then I might even go off topic on some smaller, like low budget content as well, because I've got some projects like behind me. I've got some printers from the local school, and like a lot of other people, they had a Pro and the cloud disappeared. So now what are they supposed to do? Well, I'm going to answer that question, but it's not a series of videos that's going to last months. It's going to be one video, one time. And there's some projects that I want to do that are just fun, low-hanging fruit. Everybody has to take a break from the day-to-day grind. So instead of just designing, building, iterating, designing, building, iterating, and all of the work that goes along with taking people's feedback and turning it into a better design, those things will be in there too. So little bite-sized videos, but also watch this build as it goes. So will I start a business? Well, this is sort of a business, but it's not a traditional style business. So I think what you're asking is, am I going to sell products? Well, yes. Let me give you the quick update on the bankruptcy. So Printerbot is bankrupt. I've been waiting for 2 months, 2.5 months, for Chase Bank to answer the question, are you going to sue me? And are you going to take my house? Because there's a possibility these personally guaranteed loans, never do that, will turn into a lawsuit or them seizing my property to try to get back some of the money. Oddly, there has been zero indication that Chase is interested at all with my case. Oddly. So the bank account's still there. There's even hundreds of dollars in it. I can't use it, but it's there. They erased a couple of the loans, and we don't even know what that means. Nobody at Chase will pick up the freaking phone and answer our questions. My lawyer has tried to get a hold of them. So it's come to a deadline date as of yesterday, and we're still sitting here going, hello. So the landlord's about to seize all of the printer bot. I'm pointing to my shop, a mile that direction. They're going to seize all the equipment and take control over it because, well, I don't know why. Number one would be they're either going to make some money off of it and sell it in a fire sale, or they're going to just dump it because they want their building back. They're in the business of renting, space for businesses. So if there's any chance me and the lawyer can get in there, and if the landlord does seize it, I'm going to try to buy it back or tell them I'm just going to clear out your building and return it to the way I found it, which is a lot of work. I built walls in there, and the water jet needs to be cleaned out and moved and all that. So I may jump in there and try to regain some of this equipment and go back into an actual business where I'm making things again. And if I do that, I'll have a bunch of Simple Pro carcasses and parts to sell to the world for cheap. Because I do have like 25 grand worth of debt that I got from this whole bankruptcy that sucks, but I'll need to pay that down. So I might have a fire sale later if I get everything back into my hands. But there's a chance that I'll get nothing, and then some time will pass, and then I'll feel good again about starting a business. The lawyer says, do not start a business while you're still in risk of suit from Chase, because then they'll come in, oh, he has new money, we'll take that too. So I do want to go back into business, even relating to these projects that I've mentioned on Patreon. Since I'm going to be making these machines here, I'm going to be making the parts here. And that'll be me spending my personal money to make the prototypes. I've got some favors and stuff that I can call in from people to get parts made. But if there's interest in, say, this printer belt printer that I'm going to start with, people might want to buy some kits. And I'll tell you what I don't want to do. I don't want to manufacture fully built machines at all. My assumption is that the people in this audience are makers like me, and they like to get their hands dirty. So a kit might appeal to them as opposed to trying to find they'll have the designs, but a kit might appeal instead of hiring a machinist to machine some complicated part with 4 ops and, bunch of post-processing stuff. And it would be a lot easier for those makers to just buy the kit for $200 or whatever. So it wouldn't really be a money-making scheme, not scheme, but, business. If I'm just selling 5 kits, I'll just do it out of my own pocket. But if that takes off, then I would consider doing a business. But it's not really the intent to go build and sell machines. The intent is just to build awesome machines and get into a community where the people that I'm, associating with here are enjoying themselves. I'm enjoying myself. Once we all have the machines, then it gets interesting. Then it gets interesting because we all could share files, make the same stuff. And I think it could accelerate how we all make. 3D printing has enjoyed a worldwide growing audience because everybody can go to Thingiverse and download the same file, and it pretty much prints the same way. Not true with a CNC part. All sorts of problems ensue when one guy has a Tormach, one has a Haas, one has a home built, one has an X-Carve. They are not all equal. But if we build a really good home CNC or home router, if it's a wood project, CNC router, then everybody has the same machines. You can not only share the model, you could share the G code. Like one guy that's awesome at pathing, because that takes a lot of time and experience to do properly. He can figure it out, tell me what bit to use. He knows I have the same CNC that he does, and boom, we're sharing files that everybody can make. And that could go into business or just for hobby. But the water jet is kind of like a new superpower. It's similar to laser cutting. When you laser cut it on this machine to that machine, that's probably the best use case of a machine that doesn't really matter which one you have. They all cut the same. If you have a CO2 laser and you can cut through, 1/4 inch birch plywood, well, everybody gets the exact same parts. And instead of, you don't share G code, but you share a DXF, and it pretty much comes out the same. So that's the interest. Okay, enough of that. Let's see. Is the legal stuff driving you crazy yet? Not really. I went through a period of kind of depression, but I'm not like a really low depression guy. I like dip down, and for a day or two, I'll be a little grumpy. And then my wife's like, snap out of it. I'm like, okay, I'm better. So up and down, but right now I feel pretty good. I did get a couple of side jobs that have allowed me, because I'm running out of money, but I got a couple of side jobs that you'll be hearing about soon. One will be, well, it might be a while before you hear about it, but one's a little bit public, and one is just the CNC guy that's helping me with the CNCs. We're going to be converting a frog mill over to new equipment because he's really having a hard time. So that's a little bit of money. Carl's been helping me by letting me build Model 3s. I've got 5 Model 3s here. No, I only have to ship 2 this week. But, I'm collecting all the parts, getting it all assembled and packaged. So that's a little bit of money. So driving me crazy? No. Once you go public and the whole world knows, it's like, well, whatever. Let's see. You know what? I'll subscribe on Patreon just in case you get around to building all manner of machine. Well, I will do it. But I only had $1 left. I hear you. And by the way, my pat answer to people that are like, well, I can't afford it. You just have to draw a line somewhere. So I've drawn it at $2 or $3. I forget. That's just where the line has to be. And these tiers make a lot of sense to say thank you in the proper way to the people that are giving more. So I will try to create more value at these various tiers. And yeah, I know it'll cost to join this stream, but I'm not saying that just, what is it, the $10 or $20? $10 to join this stream every week. I get it. $10 to hear me blabber on. I get it. But there's other value that is in there. I don't like to be a salesman, but I'm just saying you get access to other stuff too. I did launch the podcast on the public version. So if and Apple iTunes hasn't responded yet to have it in their search, they have to verify it's good stuff, and I'm not weird. So you may not find it in iTunes, but if you go to brookdrum.com and click through to Driven to Make, that's the podcast audio, you can subscribe with the RSS link there, and you can listen. It's the sad story of Printerbot is the first one. The second one, who was second? No, I can't remember. Third is Carl Ubis. So if you're a Patreon subscriber, the Carl Ubis stuff is live. Oh, I do have to, the bonus content will be posted today. So that will be, and then the CNC guy that I mentioned, he's being interviewed. I've interviewed Dale Doherty from Maker Media, Dale. That was a good interview. And Shape Oko, Edward Ford. A really good interview from Edward. He is a great guy. I can endorse that guy. Great guy. And then next week, I'm interviewing Bree Pettis, which will be very interesting. I'm looking forward to that one. And then there's some other ones. But anyway, so things are moving finally. I would love to see a smallest machine that could have interchangeable heads like 3D printer, CNC laser, and so on. Well, Nick, I have really contemplated that over the years, including the TV show. One of the better known ones back a few years ago was something like what was it? XYZ. I'm forgetting now. Boxy, and it was spelled BOXYZ. You see what he did there? It was a laser, CNC, and 3D printer. And let me tell you, it was pretty crappy at all of them because there's no convergence of software that can easily run all of those. And the rigidity requirements for all those are completely and totally different. So I always make the analogy, the same reason why we don't have a sink fridge oven is the same reason we don't have CNCs that are 3D printers, that are laser cutters, that are. Because it's just a bad idea to have a freezer and an oven and a sink and a refrigerator, you know, all in one. It just doesn't make any sense. You build and design very specifically for what you're doing. And even on the CNC that I'm building, like here's what it would work well as. If we do, it's going to be a 4x4 foot CNC, and it'll be remarkably rigid. But when you get to the Z axis, it'll be enough Z to like do a plasma cutter, or to do, you know, whether it's light router milling with wood, or you want to constrain it down to a smaller size, or do some cutting on an aluminum plate or something. Totally possible. So, you know, wood, aluminum, plastic, CNC, but also, what did I say? Plasma cutting. Maybe it would work as well. We'll probably use the same gantry for the water jet when I get to the water jet, because, you know, it's a fair amount of weight and you don't have to move too fast. So it's slow and there's very little Z. All those things are in common. But when you add, you know, theoretically, you could add laser cutting to that, but you're severely going to limit your speed because it's not a light axis, or it's not a light gantry. You know, all good laser cutters have like this really fast gantry, and those move fast because they're light, and those use belts exclusively. There's no laser cutter with ball screws, or we're going to use rack and pinion on the X and Y, and probably we're going to test an Acme like a 4-start or probably a 2-start Acme on the Z for the CNC, but you only have to do this much. So, but it's still very rigid, and that doesn't mix with a laser. Possible, yes, but then you sacrifice quite a bit speed. And a 3D printer is similar. You might want a tall Z. There's not a lot of Z on a CNC. You don't see you don't see any 3D printers with rack and pinion on X and Y. You know, it's belt. But again, belt pulls around, very lightweight chassis. So it doesn't match, and that's why I've never done it. Show us what you're building for the prosthetic makers. That's going to be tough, but let me see. I'll grab a couple parts. I know I'm making noise. Hold on. Talk amongst yourselves. Almost there. This is all flat packed. I've shown this before, but this is all flat packed. So you've got a Z gantry. Hold on, I gotta go. So you get 2 of these, and that's a 30. It's 29 inch. You can tell it's like to scale. It goes to my belt. You get a Z axis like this. And it's pretty interesting because I didn't expect to do this, so I'm poorly prepared. Ooh, you see my Chick-fil-A cup. So the Z axis is designed to be independent. So I screw this to the bottom, 2 of them. And so that's on the bottom. And then on the top is this. See? And then that whole Z axis can be removed from an aluminum frame. The extrusion is like this. Like here's one of the members. I use this Faztech extruded aluminum. This is 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches, made in USA. easy to get, good company. It'd be like 80-20. But anyway, so that bolts right to the extrusion. Now, the gantry, the Z, see that? There's a four bearings, and these are Highwind. I did have, don't tell them, but I did have to substitute a couple of Chinese bearings in here. Shh, because that's what I had. I actually got these bars off of Amazon. In the past, I've done Highwind bars, but these are actually very, very good. I see very little difference between a quality like Amazon seller and Highwind. But this is the bed, and so it's just real simple, straight lines, and then this mounts on top of it. So that's the bed, and it's 12 inches by 18 inches. So the X and Y, and it's a falling Z. So it starts, by the way, no! Whoops! Oh, the comments are going to fly now. Anyway, I do use these. This is a good seller, Kinovo. So the bed is this huge bed, and we stick that on the bottom, 120 volts, 600 watts. Hello. So I have the printer board, F6. It could be anything. I don't think they care. Anyway, the printer board, you use the heat bed FET to turn a solid state relay. I don't have any over here. So, oh, well, let me show you something else. Anyway, so it's a very fast bed as far as heat up. It gets so hot so quick, it's ridiculous. Again, 600 watts of AC power. I'm showing you the... All right, this doesn't have everything on it yet. And it's going to be kind of hard to show. But this is the top plate. So the top plate is one piece of 1/4-inch aluminum. All of the electronics mount here. So there's 12 volts to run the board, solid state relay that runs the AC. So there's a bunch of wiring that needs to be put in here. I don't think I have any of them done. So you just turn the power on, it turns on the power to both the AC and the 12 volts. And then we actually have a 24 volt hot end because we run the UBIS high temp 90 watt hot end. So 90 watts on the extrude, the hot end, 600 watts on the heater, but it's just an aluminum frame, but you can easily bolt nothing like all the extrusion stops on the edge. So you see a lot of these designs and they break the edges of the box with a bunch of stuff they hang off the side. Well, this does hang stuff off the back, but that's it. So you can put sides and you can actually put a back on this very, very easily. You have access to all of the channels of the aluminum frame. So go down to, so you can go, oh, there's one part I didn't show you. Let's see, I don't know where they are though. I was going to grab the gantry, but I don't see them. Anyway, you can go down and get plastic or, wrap it with saran wrap, and then you got an enclosed chamber. So very powerful. They can print Peak and Ultim or whatever. There's a big rack that sits on top, so you can put very large rolls on it. You could do a 5-pound roll. So anyway, so that's what we're doing. I have pictures and stuff that I could post. I might even do a build video of me putting one together to see how it goes together. But I'll tell you a couple of interesting things about that printer that I've learned in the design. I saw these people doing these aluminum extrusion builds, and in fact, John, who was on the Google chat, is building one right now. And I'll tell you what's good about them. They're cheap. They're relatively cheap. To make a printer that large in folded metal is ridiculous. Now, ultimately, if you're ordering 100 of them, yeah, I could see how you'd want to do that. But these are so cheap, and really they're good enough. If you look at Brian, he got a friend of mine. Well, you know Brian. He got a Protomax water jet. They're like 20 grand. We went in there and pulled the panels off the side and look inside to see what makes this thing tick. And guess what we see? Extruded aluminum and like a vacuum formed plastic tub for the water, and just like simple parts. So you don't want to overbuild and just pass that on to customers. You want to make it as cheaply as you can. And for small shops like this garage, I don't want to have to do a lot of stuff that I have to put on the shelf, pay a bunch up front, hope I sell it. I could build one at a time of these, or in this case, 2 at a time, or there were 3 on this order. By the way, this printer costs something like $3,300 or $3,200, something like that, for a 12 by 18 by 24 inches. So it's 1 foot by 1.5 by 2. That is a big volume for $3 grand, but it's really being used for, they use it with, I think it's 1.5 millimeter nozzles. And with that 90 watt hot end, it just goes like the dickens. So that's that. And they do large layer height. And so, yes, they could print as high resolution as they want, but these guys are using it for specific, they're scratching a specific itch. So this whole machine's designed to be flat packed, put on a plane into 2 packages that weigh less than 50 pounds, carried in by a couple of guys. Like they go to, Africa. They're doing an installation in Cambodia, South Korea. They're going to places where kids need limbs, and specifically legs. And so they needed, to get to the joint, you need 2 feet of height. And they do piece these together, by the way. There's usually part of the leg doesn't have to be printed. It's the part that fits around the body. So they're scanning the leg, instantly going through their tool chain to make the prosthetic. And they actually use a sock. I mean, there's a bunch of ways to skin a cat. And, there's a lot of competing nonprofit prosthetics places, and there's hundreds of prosthetists that are doctors or, like medically qualified people. So, sometimes the old ways of doing things are the best and the cheapest when you've got a skilled person. But I think they're going after a different, they're kind of doing the work ahead of time to get a payoff in the future that's, that they're really buying into and believe in. So it's been fun. All right, Revision X. Do you plan on continuing this project after the primary projects are done with this community? Absolutely. I want to actually do projects all along, but I'm not a guy, like you see these guys that build like hover bike, and he actually flew on it. But the whole time my heart was beating like, is he going to die? He built like a life-size X-Wing fighter. No, I'm sorry. It was Darth Vader's, I don't think it was called X-Wing. Anyway, like a life-size science fiction spaceship. I don't really aspire to, I don't really want to get to millions of viewers and millions of dollars. I know that sounds funny, but it's just, I don't know. It's not me. I went on TV on my little, 15 minutes of not fame, the All-American Makers. I did that because it was an opportunity to have an experience that you don't get to experience unless you say yes to stuff like that. But it wasn't for money. I mean, they paid me like $2,600 an episode. You people probably make more than that. And one season was a month and a half of my life gone. And that was only either 9 or 13 shows. So you don't do this stuff. It's not a get rich quick thing. And I don't know that I want to be endorsing, like products that, like Bayer aspirin or something like that, like Red Bull. I hate Red Bull. So I don't know if people that built if Dremel, or somebody like that wanted to sponsor me, I'm in because I like their tools. But I don't know if I want to do ridiculous projects for the entertainment of people sitting on couches. I want to build stuff. And that's the real deal. I want to build stuff, and I want to see people build stuff. And what would be better than me being a monkey dancing in front of a camera would be all you people learning to building awesome stuff, and the world's a better place instead of more hits on YouTube. You know what I'm saying? So that's where I land. All right. But I'm not going to stop. I want to get to the project. So even after we build the machines, we'll either find other machines to build, or we'll just do projects, and not crazy projects like hover bikes, but projects where you learn to use the machines properly instead of, like, let me think. There was who was that guy, that crazy dude that back in the 80s and 70s, he would paint on like public television, and he had the big afro. What's that guy's name? Anyway, that guy wasn't a rock star. They think he is now, but he was literally teaching people how to paint. And yeah, all his paintings had kind of this certain look to it. And it was, at best, you could be an amateur painter that really had a lot of joy in painting. And I think that's a worthy cause, and that's what I want to do. Learn the skills and then see what happens. Invest in kids and education and craftsmanship and making, not only in the US, but wherever you live, making locally. All right. Let's see. Or will you be able to be on to a whole different project at that point, or will it be to be seen when we get there? Oh, okay. So you were just saying, like, am I just going to go on to the next shiny object? I actually, my whole life, have been interested in videos and have been interested in building. So that's core to who I am. I love the video stuff. I love engaging with the community, and being a spokesperson to some degree is fun, because I actually believe I have good ideas, which sounds funny sometimes, and not always true. But I know that if you stand up and lead, and I do know that I can lead at my best, again, not always, but when I'm at my best, that good things can happen and come from that. And it doesn't have to be something that only I benefit from. It's something that everybody can benefit from. So that's the idea. One cool thing about these videos too is if I build a printer belt, and there it is, we've made the perfect printer belt that you can make at your house for the least amount of money. Not always the least amount of money, by the way. We want quality parts, so like a reasonable amount of money, and it performs really, really well. Okay, so that goes out and has a life that continues on forever, possibly, right? We could always revisit it and update it. But these CNC machine, I just saw a thing on TV the other day where they were showing off, they think the first, or at least the most important lathe that really was the grandfather of the Industrial Revolution. And it's in some museum, and it looks a lot like the lathe that I had at Printerbot. Same concepts, everything. So these tools don't really go out of style. They're not, I don't think, while some would say 3D printing was a fad, yes, it was a fad, but in a certain market, like people that never had anything to do with making, they were buying 3D printers and making stuff. That was short. But the impact it's had on the world will never go away. So this type of content is timeless. When if you make a video like I watched last night with my boy about people that flipped water bottles and they landed perfectly, I can't go to my grave feeling good about doing crap like that, okay? And if you do that, fine. But I'm just saying, that doesn't mean anything to me, and it's not timeless. It's not something I'm interested in. All right, Paul Arden says, we'll say, without the first few open streams to hear more, I probably wouldn't have signed up, though. Good point. That's why I want to give him a little tease. And by the way, we are, now that we've launched the public podcast, The public podcast is now out there, and everybody that subscribes to it, starting with episode 1 as of yesterday, they will constantly get a voice in their ear at the end of that saying, patreon.com/BrookDrumm. So I do that. And then I will be releasing the final files of the projects that I do to the public. And what was the other thing? There will be YouTube videos that go live, but Patreon will be way ahead of the game. So if you want to see it first and actually interact with people, like, I don't know why people would watch this video later. Like, they're posting to YouTube, but I'm not exactly sure, because wouldn't it be better if they just showed up and asked a question, or the Google, I won't be posting the Google stuff, the Google chat videos, but it only has value if you're there. But anyway, hearing the plans in more detail than Patreon intro helped push me over the line. Well, that's helpful, and I'll try to do a better job. I'll go back through that Patreon content, kind of like a Kickstarter. You do your first pass, and you say, this is what I'm doing, and then you chew on it for a couple of weeks, and people tell you some ideas in your ear, and you're like, there's probably a better way to state that. So I'll take another look at that intro video. Maybe I need to reshoot that. Appreciate that. Sean Wood, I don't care. The amounts you have with Chase is a drop in the bucket to their overall amounts loaded. They'll probably just write off. Who knows? Who knows? Yeah. Oh, I didn't realize I'm so far behind. Okay. This is going to be an awkward moment where I just read for a minute. Oh, by the way, if they do say, Brooke, come get this stuff, get it out of here, I will promise you, I don't know where you people live, but one guy said, hey, let me know, I'll come help. I accept if we get there. We may not even get there. But yes, I will have a party and buy the pizza and the beer or water, and we will spend a couple days. I will be there nonstop for a week or two to get everything out of there, try to sell some of it off, throw a bunch away, cram some of it into my garage. All right, let Carl Ubis buy the stuff from auction and pay you for your services. Well, it may not even go to auction if they say, come get it out of here. It's 3D, it's custom 3D printer parts that, like, unless you get it all together and know how to put it together, there's even been, the clock was ticking from when we designed that machine, although as a bare bones mechanical thing, and I got a couple here from the school. Those are solid, so I guess they have value. I could sell them cheap, but if you look on Amazon, they're already selling them cheap. So I don't know how much value it has for anybody, but I think at least donations or something like that. Anyway, so yeah, I'll let you know. If I have to go clean it out, we'll turn on the live cam and just say, here we go. +1 for kit. I'd actually be more inclined to a bare bones kit. I assume that you're talking about if we do kits for these machines. Yeah, it'd be a kit. I'm not going to do fully built stuff. That's a pain in the butt. No. Oh, the mostly printed CNC. Somebody asked, have you ever played around with that? No, I haven't done it. I know the guy that does it. Met him at Murph. Great guy. Totally endorse that dude. And that project, I saw the machine in person, and that project is super cool. But I asked him, just like I asked Prussia, when I see that, you know, all the parts are printed. That is not a way to, it's fine. It's perfect for somebody with a 3D printer that wants to get into something at low dollar. It is not perfect for somebody that's manufacturing printers. And Prussia is manufacturing printers. And the mostly printed CNC project is a guy that is manufacturing printers. So I challenge both of them. I'm like, just make it in metal, at least like injection molded, like fiber filled ABS, or, you know, not Delrin, but anyway, there's other plastics. You know, there's better ways to make those machines. So I've never really understood why they do it like that. So I've challenged both of them. And in fact, the CNC, the 3D, mostly printed CNC guy, mostly 3D printed. Anyway, I've invited him up for a play date, and would love to record him for the podcast. I got to tell my wife that. But anyway, great guy, cool project. I don't think it's a way to manufacture printers, but if you're building one for yourself, you should check it out. It's really cool. Can you add the podcast to the Google Play Store? I don't know what that even means. I assume that means so that people can subscribe easily. So the answer is probably yes. Just haven't looked into it. I'm an iPhone, Mac guy, not a Windows or Android guy. But I will make a note. Thomas Picone, Bree Pettis. Wow, that's what a throwback. I feel like I haven't heard that name in a very long time. Well, I've spent time with him since he was out of the limelight. And I got to tell you a couple things, and I know there's haters everywhere. But show me, you don't get to be a hater unless you were running a large manufacturing company that grew exponentially in a ridiculously short amount of time, because that will take years off your life. It'll bring out the best and worst in you. And, hopefully he'll talk about it. I'm going to give him, I'm not going to force him to talk about hard stuff. I'm not a reporter trying to get a scoop. I'm a friend trying to talk about makers and what's your journey taught you and what can it teach us. But yeah, he's in person. He's a super nice guy. I know how he came off in the movie, a little bit rough around the edges, but the Print the Legend, I think that's worth getting. Oh, I know who number 2 podcast was. Max from Formlabs, Lebowski. He's a friend, and I interviewed him. Kind of a fascinating little chat with him. But Bree has been active in the maker community again. And maker is maybe overstating, but he bought Other Machine, or I forget what the name of that company was, but they make that white CNC, you can CNC PCB. He bought the whole company and has been public that he's trying to move it up to where he lives in New York. And I've actually been up there. So real interesting area. But yeah, that company, well, we'll hear more about it in the podcast, but I'll definitely be talking to him about that, because if you've heard of Other Machine, those are fantastic. But now the company is not named whatever it was named. I thought it was Other Machine or something like that. Other Mill, Other Machine. Anyway, now it's called Bantam Tools. Bantam Tools. And so it's like desktop CNC. So he is into biz again. And you can find some interviews from him, but I'll do one on podcast. Let's see. Can you release the files for the Big E on your website? Yes, I can. That'll go on the list. Rack and pinion is the difficult to keep intolerance from slop and jam in my experience, especially with removed dust and waste product flying around. Yeah. But understand, we're going to build the 4x4 CNC in the same fashion with all the best practices from larger CNC equipment. The guy that's helping me design it and build it is Jeremy Black is his name. He owned a professional woodworking shop to do very high-end furniture and kitchens and remodels on both new and at the end he was just doing woodwork for millionaires. And he had a very large machine, 10x5 cut area, or maybe it's 12x5. I think it was 10x5. Anyway, and this thing had a 15 horsepower spindle on it and a rotary tool changer always running on the axis along the Y. So this machine would cut, what did he say, 600 inches a minute, and he could cut through 2 or 3 or 4, I don't know if it was 4, stacks of like the real high quality veneer stuff at one time. So he knows his CNC equipment, and he said he's owned several large ones like that, and he says all of them are rack and pinion. And yesterday or 2 days ago, 2 days ago, I went down to that side job in Sacramento, and it was a frog mill, and it was a 4x8 cutting area. It has a rotary attachment on it. Well, it's permanent, but you can do like huge blocks of foam, and they can, CNC the blocks of foam. He showed me a Statue of Liberty that was like, I don't know, 12 feet tall, 14 feet tall. Just looked fantastic, all done in foam on that frog mill. But he has a vacuum table on right now, and we went over that machine, took it apart. Not a lot, but took panels off and looked. It's all rack and pinion. And even the Z on that one is rack and pinion. And so you can get a really, really detailed, high resolution from rack and pinion. So yeah, I get it. We won't promise anything. We're going to try it. But it will have, proper linear rail. I think this is 15 millimeters. We're looking at maybe even as large as 20, 25 millimeter profile. So it's not going to be a $300 machine. This is, going to be done right with spindle, control on the spindle, touch probe, end stops, accurate, like the whole nine. Tool changer. It will have a tool changer. So, the interwebs has some good ideas flying around for tool changers. But so that's the plan. Not saying I know everything, just telling you what I'm shooting for. Brook has secret stash of Rev Fs. No, we don't. Here's my secret stash. Almost none of these is a Rev F. If it is a Rev F, it don't work. By the way, I do want to say something about, of course, the first one I pull is a Rev F. F5. I don't think it works, though. Or it wouldn't be in this box. That's another F5. D. I do have the secret stash of Rev D. Actually, I think Carl does. I give Carl all my broken stuff or stuff I couldn't sell before the bankruptcy. Rev D. This is probably stuff that I had in drawers and crap. A lot of this is LCD screens, some old Raspberry Pi Bs. Hey, Rev F6. I know this is a strange one. This is a Rev E for you, and this went on a Simple Makers kit. Here's a little bit of PrinterBot trivia. It says printerbot.com, but it also says reprap.me. So who made this board? Not me, either China or India, because I never did a Rev E. And the FETs on that extruder and heat bed, I never use those surface mount FETs. All mine look like that. And by the way, here's another bit of trivia. The FETs on these old boards are actually up till, anyway, they went down a little bit, but they started as 75 amp FETs. Hilarious. Anyway, you didn't get on here to another Rev F6. Gosh, I got to check these, see if they work. Anyway, by the way, on GitHub, check this out. GitHub.com/abdrum. I lied. Oh, yes. Look on the project on github.com/abdrum. Printer board modern Marlin. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We have stubbed out a project. Where did my camera go? A local guy who calls himself Dr. Phil 3D. He's the 3D print guy at a local hackerspaces, a couple of them actually. Very smart guy, friend of mine. Known him for a while. He's actually the guy that told me about JS, or what's that called? JS Cut? That CNC software that I discovered because of him, that just ran the crawlbot, like boom. When I was struggling with running it on Windows, he was like, I've been running it on Windows a long time because of that JS Cut .net or org or something. Anyway, but go to that GitHub. He took some old printers that he had at the makerspace. I think some of them I donated. He might have had one I gave him. But he's got the latest Marlin, not 2.0, 1.9 point something, running with all the features, not all, but most of the features that we have never used on PrinterBots he's got it working. Now, platform.io is you might be familiar with it if you're a programmer or compile things by yourself. It's a multi-platform thing based on a Google Atom. You plug in platform.io, which is like easy to just click. I've got a little IoT board like the ESP8266, if I'm saying that right. And it says, okay, I got all the libraries I need to compile for that board. Just plug it in. Oh, I see it. Okay, you want to upload the firmware? Push the button. Okay, done. Well, it's like that with the printer board. The printer board has been added to another add-on tool called Marlin Configurator or Configuration. And boom, we've got live Z leveling, which is weird. When you're printing, instead of like, oh, I got to type an M code. No. You go to the menu item and say up a little bit, 0.2 of a millimeter, or down, click, and you just fix your Z leveling. The mesh leveling, the bed mesh leveling, that's in there. Anyway, so he's done a bunch of work, and he's putting that up before Friday. He said he's putting the code up with some hex files, and we want the community to get out your old printer, upload one of the, or compile it yourself, or upload what he's prepared. I think he's got one on the old Play, the new Play V2, and then I also gave him a Pro that he might be swapping out to a printer board. So anyway, that's going to be fun because I saw Brian use his Prusa, and it was pretty nice having all those features in there. Now, some features we can't offer because like we don't have the silent steppers or whatever, the Trinamic chips yet. But I don't plan on continuing to develop on that board, but Carl just ordered like 100 of them. It'll be a while before those are in stock, weeks before they're in stock there. But why not make printers that already exist better? And especially since the community is making it happen. So, all right. Greg the Great, good to see you. Thank you. I'm getting close to like boring you guys, I think. Will the build videos be public on YouTube or they only Patreon? No, I have a value that the videos are all going to find their way to YouTube, of course. I want to share that with the world. I don't want to hold on to them for myself or the patrons, but they get early access to them. So I'll post them first, a couple weeks early on Patreon, and then release them to the public. So if you're patient, it's like a TV with a DVR. Bob Ross, that's who it was. Happy trees. Yeah. There was a very redeeming article about Bree rescuing other machines. Yeah, that was good. Mark Iverson, good to see you too. Nerd Club still as you. Awesome. By the way, there's a guy out there. I forget who it is though. Oh, Mark's asking if there's any printer boards around. I don't know. I've heard that a couple guys are making them and selling them. I don't care at all. It doesn't bother me a bit. But your best source will be Carl or ubishotends.com once he gets them in stock, because he's committed to keeping those in stock. And it's a nice match for printer boards with the Ubis hot end. By the way, he is manufacturing custom Ubis hot ends with custom wattage and mounting schemes for, stuff beyond what I was doing. I never did a Bowden tube. I never did the exactly same groove mount as E3D, so he's switching over to that. He's got some new tips that I can't talk about. But anyway, good stuff coming there, and I think that'll be your best for quality because he's getting it from the same supplier that I'm getting it, that I was getting them from. They're likely roller rack and pinion. Lathe builder. What I saw on Frog Mill was it was big rail, 2 per axis. It was like 25 millimeter rail, and like linear rail, like what I showed you, but bigger, and straight cut. I mean, what I have here. Let me see if I can find it. this is the rack that I have here. So what happens is it goes on a double wide, but you end up mounting it where it's just below, so you can hang your motor off to the side. And we're going to try direct drive. If we have to use a little, like small gear, large gear with a loop belt, we'll do that as needed. But by the way, now I've got dirty hands. No. Crap. Check this out, because we're both guys. Like I said, I was constrained when I designed products at PrinterBot because I was trying to hit a certain price point. Not a problem. I mean, there's a finite amount of money we both have, but we both know the pain of buying. And not to pick on X-Carve, but if anybody has bought an X-Carve with the hopes of milling aluminum, no, that's not going to happen. And we're talking about a guy that was Jeremy Black. He used to do stuff at a very high level, and he didn't want to waste anybody's time, or his or mine. So it's going to be NEMA 34 motors. Hello, 34. Huh? That's more than 17 or 23. It's a higher number. Independent drivers. Probably see some decent Chinese drivers, but yeah, it'll be serious. So if you want to make that machine bigger, done. You could do it. And now it's not, I've got my CNCs over here. Well, one of them works. Maybe. There's another one that's in parts. But I've dug some of the parts for those out of the trash, some older versions that were literally in the trash. I was like, oh, maybe I could use that. So the CNCs that I built were belt. Not a great idea for metal. They were roller on extruded aluminum. Not that precise. Cheap, but not that precise. So we're doing it right. Brooke, not born. I am using the Printerboard G2 and the Printerboard G2, and it is sick. Yes, I swear that board. I'm telling you, it's running my CNC. It is smooth as silk. It's pretty quiet. I'll tell you, if you're using the, I don't know if you're using it, Isaac, are you using the G2 for 3D printing or CNC? Because I need to bug those guys and find out how I can get the pins. I don't know how to get to them, though. I need the pins for a touch probe or the pins for, there's pins on there because of my ribbon cable and stuff. I need to figure out if I can get pin out to control PWM for a spindle, because I got a couple of cheap Chinese spindles and I want to test the G2. It runs G2 Core, which for me, CNC stuff is really nice with that G2. So is that by the way, vote now if you have a dog in this hunt. What electronics package should I use for this? Keep in mind, it's linear rail, rack and pinion. If we need to go to ball screw, we'll go to ball screw. Ball screw on the Z or Acme. It'll be a spindle, a decent spindle. Like, I don't mind spending $400 on a spindle. It's better than spending $100 on a router that's super loud and then spending another $125 to do PWM, speed control. And now you're within striking distance of just saving yourself the trouble and a lot quieter operation and control everything from the beginning. So, yeah, keep in mind that it has those things. But I'm thinking Tiny G might be the choice. If you have a dog in this hunt and you know what package you would use for, if you know what package you would use for CNC if you're building a machine with NEMA 34s, it has to have step and direction out. It needs enough pins for all this stuff. That'll be cool. All right. Can we contribute questions for your podcast via Twitter or Patreon? Yes. Or you could email me at brook@printerbot.com. because I apparently ran away with the domain name. Whoops. You can also get me at abdrum@gmail.com. My first name is Arthur Brook Drumm. That's not my first name. That's all three. you know, I'm on Brook at Printerbot, or you can go through Patreon, or yeah, I don't know if there's a contact form on my website yet, but that's how you get me. And yes, please make suggestions for people to interview. You know, my circle of, you know, friends and people that I've met and people I've forgotten I met is a finite value. If you got people that would be interested, anywhere from makers in a garage to somebody with a crazy story about making, whether it's a bunch of stuff or one thing. I've actually been in. Oh, Ted from ShopBot has agreed to be interviewed. A guy that lives in the Maldives that is in charge of a recycling program where they pick up recycled plastic off the shores. They don't give any plastic to the. It's like this resort island. So it's a little weird that you know, you'd think a resort. Why do they need to recycle? Well, no, like there's locals living there too. So they pick up the trash and they've got precious plastic, a couple of precious plastic. Check them out, .org or net or something. These machines to recycle plastic, and then we're going to try to make a machine that uses those extruders or a Philibot to do a big 3D printer to use on the island for this trash waste into wealth. Instead of wealth, it's not money, it's like usefulness, save planet Earth, that type of thing. So he's going to be on the podcast. But send recommendations if you got ideas. Somebody said Cory Doctorow, and so I got his book and I'm reading it. Okay, I just started it, but I don't know that he'd want to do it. Some Yahoo like me, but can you run NEMA 23s off the G2? Yes, I do it all the time, no problem. By the way, there is a wealth of information. In fact, on that GitHub page, github.com/abdrum. Look at the G2 documentation, and Brian Fife did a great job compiling information about G2. And Alden, who is the owner of the company that makes Tiny G, he employs Rob. That if you just do search for Tiny G and Rob, or go to the Tiny G Wikipedia thing, wiki page. I think it's off of GitHub, but I'm not sure. He is the guy that wrote the firmware. And believe me, you talk about talking. It's like talking to God about G code in the Tiny G G2 Core firmware. You just ask him any old thing, and he knows everything. All the information is in one place. So and they love CNC. Like I drug them into 3D printing, which I'm sure they're like, is it a good idea? I don't know. But okay, 3D printing. But they can answer the questions. So check it out. There's a lot of configuration stuff that you can mess around with in that G2 board. What software would you recommend for open source CNC? I'm personally, I just say this is my answer, and I'm not against anything else, but this is what I do. Fusion 360 for design. Use a Tiny G for your board, and you get the built-in Tiny G post-processing. And then you got your G code. Take your G code over to JS Cut. I think it's JS Cut. Let me go check that real quick. JS Cut. This is kind of weird. I'm just talking to myself. Is it JS Cut? I think I'm telling you wrong. It's not JS Cut. Dadgummit. Somebody tell me what it is. It's not JS Cut. I've been saying that wrong. No. CNC open source. Sorry, I'm typing. CNCJS. Thank you. So go to CNCJS. It's on GitHub. They also have a website. But, you know, go to GitHub. Go to GitHub. The supported controllers or electronics, Gerbil, or however you say it, Gerbil Mega, Marlin. Marlin, oh, that's the funny thing about it. You can actually duct tape a CNC, like a Dremel, to your printer. Boom! And you can run JS. I don't want to say it wrong again. CNCJS. You can run that from Marlin. Pretty crazy. SmoothieWare, Tiny G, They recommend firmware version 0.97 build 449.xx. Hilarious. G2 core. So it's Linux, Mac, and Windows. So yeah, go get you some of that. It's pretty cool. You should interview Tom. I already interviewed Tom. Oh, no, I didn't. Months back, I interviewed Tom in a video. He interviewed me. I did a Skype with him, and we talked forever, and I wish I would have been recording because we talked about some cool stuff that you will never hear. Same thing happened with Joel Telling. Talked to him for like an hour. It was freaking awesome. I wish oh, Octoprint founder Gina. Yes. I need to put her. She's actually, I consider her a friend. She's fantastic. Plan that hangout with my nerd club. Heck yeah, Mark. Oh, that's right. I remember what you do now. Yeah, let's do that, man. I'm available. All right, that's it. Oh, a speech synthesizer would be awesome. All right, guys, thanks for hanging out. I'm going to go meet a buddy for dinner. Always a pleasure being with you. Good job. Show that. There's the link. And I think there was another link that wanted me to, I have no idea what it is, but there I am. Letting you recommend those. Anyway, have a good week. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast, please do that. If you are a patron, give me feedback. If you have anything you want me to hear or do or say or model a printer to get online, like the Big E, on brookdrum.com. I'm finally figuring some of this stuff out, so we'll be posting regularly. It's November 1st. This is my official launch. So now I have to, thanks, Mark. Now I have to show up with the goods. So that's what I'm going to do. So anyway, guys, I'm ending the stream. Have a great week. And by the way, go vote. It's a big election. Go vote. See ya.